Right folks, welcome back to the workshop. Another Kitchenaid in for repair. This is an older style Kitchenaid Classic. And a nice white. Looks to be a fair age because she's got a fair bit of use. This one, what's she doing? This is the main question. She's rubbing on the bowl anyway. Head's actually moving. There we go there, look. You can see she's actually bearing down on the beater. You can see it touching the pan here. That's where she should be sitting. The beater's sitting with gravity holding the beater down. She's actually got the head pushing down on the beater. So the beater's actually sitting tight against the bowl. So whenever you switch her on, she rubs. The whole head's actually flapping about. You can see the amount of play in it there. Don't think I can do much with the sideways play, but we might be able to improve the up and down play. What's actually happening is the head itself, the whole motor, is actually sitting too far forward. So she's pressing down on top of the beater. She should be sitting like this. Have to see what we can do about that. The front piece is missing as well, but customer might just have that themselves. Could have just taken out after using an attachment. Everything else looks okay, bit grubby looking. Bit of wear on top of everything. All on here. We'll probably just give it a service while we're at it. Just replace the grease inside. Put them to one side. We can see what we can do with this. So the head itself, adjustment is very easy. All you need to adjust is this screw on here, this flat countersunk screw. The machine itself is a very mechanical design, very simple. That screw's not bearing down on anything. She's actually the stop point. So the more this screw is out, if you back it off, that screw is what actually sets the head to the correct height. So the further in it goes, it allows the head to pivot further forward. The further out you take the screw, the more you unscrew it, it actually butts up against the surface here sooner and causes the head to sit further forward or further back. So back that out just a little bit. Put the bowl back on for us as well. Now the sideways play, can't do much about that. The head itself is no longer touching. Speed wise on this, she's going through all the speeds, but she may just be a little bit slow. So now all we need to do is just give it a good clean and a good service. So we'll strap it all down, get it all washed out and cleaned up. Everything on this is quite grubby. So we'll strip it all down, give it a good clean. Just one screw for the back cover. Yeah, even that. It's looking old now. It needs a clean. Now the paper gasket has a wee bit torn. That wee part come off, which is very worn. But it's only a paper gasket. It's not actually keeping any grease. It's mainly keeping out dust. This band. 2 screws. One either side. And she just pulls off. And you can see the head of this. That's a lot cleaner. That's because the person that left this in for somebody actually wrote the other person's name and phone number across the top in black marker. Not a good thing on a white machine, so I had to get thinners to clean that off. Otherwise it would have been stained permanently. Wouldn't have been a good look for a nice white kitchen appliance. That there is grease. Actually from the gearbox on here. That's starting to separate out. The grease inside is very thick. You've probably seen in other videos. Over time, the grease will actually start to separate, so the grease will become thick and the oils will seep out of it. So it does start to weep out along here, runs down. That's why this ring has a lip on it to catch some of the oil if it does leak out. Stop it from getting into the bowl. Plus, a food mixer like this here, it has to be food safe grease anyway. So even if it did get into your food, it's not the end of the world. Might give you a wee bit of a taste, but you'll be alright. Plenty of meat left in the brushes anyway. One of the best things about these machines, basically we'll need 2 tools, a flathead and a Phillips screwdriver. Will allow you to do most of this repair without any other tools. This band here just taps off. And that's it. As you can see from the inside, that is the beginnings of your grease coming out. This definitely needs a service. Luckily, nicely laid out these machines. All the wiring is actually marked. The actual speed control board is everything marked on. Blue, black, black, white, black. These are all reds. And if you're unsure, just take a picture before you start disassembling. So all you need is a 9mm spanner, the number 2 Phillips. Slacken off the 2 nuts here. And you can just unscrew everything. So if you're changing this part on its own, you have to pull off the spring, pull it off and hook it onto a piece of cloth or something. So you can just swap the part, pop the string back on again. But we're taking this whole motor off, so it doesn't really matter if the spring goes onto the machine. We can still get it again because we're going to be opening it up anyway. Just pull out your board, grab your spring and unhook it. That's your speed control board. Put that aside, keep it safe. Spring's just up on here. Take that out as well. Now, to get the actual head off, this gear head, give it a wee turn. There's a pin just here going through the shaft. Just need to knock that pin out. take that out. I just use another flathead and another screwdriver. And it just taps out very easily. Tap it out, put it aside. That head will just pull straight off. And the washer might be up on here. This one still attached. Don't be losing that either. Then you just have 5 screws up here. All flatheads. And then you have 2 screws back here, the very back of the machine. Take all of these out. I don't know if this is a different design or an older machine. There's actually 2 more screws just here. You might have to get a little pry up just to break the initial hold. Just be careful not to chip the paint. There's our machine. What's going on here? Is this sheared? Nope. It's a different design. Looks like it's just an older design. The newer ones, this gear and shaft is all one piece. This one here is a wee lock pin through the centre. It locks into this here gear. Instead of having one piece, it's made up of 2. That's cool. Well, don't forget this wee fibre washer. Sits on top of here, between that and the gear. Now after that, you have your little gear train here. The nylon gear, so it is. It connects up your worm drive for your motor. Transfers it onto this gear, which then turns a smaller gear down this side, which drives your big crown gear. So it turns on high speed, low torque from the motor and changes it down to a lower speed, higher torque for the beaters. It's also a sacrificial part. There's only plastic or nylon gear in it. Everything else is metal. Designed to be a sacrificial part. A lot of people think this is a design fault or cheaping out. That there is weaker for a reason. If you happen to bind up or jam your motor, if you jam up your beaters, put the machine under too much strain, especially if you're making bread and you go straight into high speed without building up the speed first, you're going to damage your motor or potentially strip out the gears. So this gear here is designed to strip out if you put it under too much load. Your motor will run, tear apart the gears, and the machine won't run. That'll save your machine and save your hands, especially if you get your hand jammed in the machine. All you have to do then is just replace that gear if it ever jams up. So if you ever use the machine, the motor starts running, but the beaters stop turning, you've probably stripped out this gear. Open it up, take off the motor, replace that gear, and that'll get you running again. All that's actually holding it on is just 3 wee screws. These ones are actually PH2s. And a wee gear train just lifts straight out. To actually change them, there'll be a roll pin. I think it's on the gear here itself. Push that out. Then the actual drive shaft can be pulled out. There's 2 washers above and below. Keep an eye on them. Just pull out the gear, put in the new one, the shaft back in, and reinstall your roll pin. That's all there is to it. For now, today, we don't need to do that. Just need to clean it. Always the nice bit. Pulling out the old grease. like working with caramel. It's lovely. Just don't eat it. Get rid of the bulk of it first, and then clean it out. You can see what the grease used to look like. Nice and orange. It really doesn't get moved around an awful lot inside these machines. Generally, where it goes after it's initially put in and then switched on, that's generally where it stays. So you'll see quite a lot of grease get into this. That's because if you don't put in enough, it's not going to get to the part you want. Scoop it out, clean it out, and get new stuff on it. Also, just pull out that gear there. That's just for driving your attachments. So that'll do. Take her now, wash out all this grease. Try to save your gasket if you can. Try not to damage it. Wash it out whatever you're using. I'm going to use kerosene and a parts washer just on this section here, and on the motor section up here. But you can use whatever. If you're using soapy water, use that. Just don't be getting it into the motor itself. Nothing back here, nothing up here. Just get it on up there. Keep that section dry. Now, that's us ready to go. All cleaned out and washed down, all the grease removed. Even the body, give it a wee clean out as well. And the head, all washed out and cleaned, dried off, ready to go. A couple of scuff marks on the head of the machine. Can't do much with that, but give the rest of the white paint work a good clean down and a buff up as well. So this mixer actually must be very old because there's no actual spring fitted. Not that I can see anyway. It's just a straight catch for locking the head down. There's nothing to actually hold back this lever, keep it in the lock position. It's just gravity. And maybe there was a spring in this at a stage, but I cannot see where it was fitted. There's nothing up here or anything for a spring to actually clip onto. So as far as I can see, she never had one. But correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't got one to fit anyway, and I can't see where to fit it, so that's going to have to remain the way it is. The rebuild is pretty much the same as the disassembly, just in reverse order. First off, start off with your wee gear train, your wee jack shaft. I actually thought this was a metal gear when I was cleaning it out, but it is actually plastic. Same as the modern ones. So that sits on here. 3 screws in, hold it down. Make sure they're down good and tight. And as always, a good helping of grease to make sure everything is well lubricated before it initially switches on. You don't want anything starting up dry. Plenty in there, plenty down in here, and up on top of the bronze bush as well. Now this grease is actually quite heavy. If you put on lighter stuff, it would move around a lot better and actually get onto all the components, but if you use lighter stuff, it's also going to leak out a little bit easier too. Heavy grease is what you want. A little bit on that bush there. Plenty around here. Now this older model, this single grey felt one, washer sits here. And your gear sits on top of it. Your pin just slides in. Make Make sure the bore has a bit of grease also. Drop that on. After that, again, plenty of grease. Everything nicely coated with a good thick dollop. Seems like a lot, and it is, but it's needed. Install your gear and give that a coat of grease as well. Rule is, don't be shy. This is actually a big void. You'll not overfill this with grease. And lastly, don't forget your gasket. It's just locating onto there. Locates onto this pin. All the holes should line up. There's nothing wrong with the old one. You can reuse it. If there's any damage to it, if it's torn at all, replace the gasket. Now this spindle here and this pin on top of your gear train, we're going onto these two bores here. If you have them totally filled with grease, you'll have a lot of resistance to get this head on. The grease will have to be squeezed out for the head to go down. And try not to cross thread them. I don't like to tighten them all down. Just snug them up a little. I generally wait till they're all in before tightening them down fully. Next, and some grease up on here. Not an awful amount, just enough to give that gear a bit of a coating. And then put your two washers back in. A little bit of grease helps stick them together. Then we can reinstall the head. All you need to do, rotate this head until you can see the hole the whole way through. Line up your pin. It just takes a wee tap to put it back into place. It's not that overly tight. Just tap it in until she's snug. Next we'll install the lock plate for the bowle. Just line up the screws. Your stainless steel ring is on here. It's just a wee bit of bling, but it's also got this channel for any grease that does leak out. It tends to build up here first. That just lines up and presses on. Simple as. Next up, and it's the all-important Kitchenaid band. That just wraps around. As you can see, it's all bent out of the sides. Do not try to straighten that, whatever you do. It's bent like that so it hugs the machine good and tight. If it were straight, it would bow out and belly in the middle. It has to have that bend to fit nice and snug. Now for the actual speed control, you need to hook the spring back into here. Now I just have the spring hooked onto here still. You can grab it with a pair of pliers. And just hook it onto the bottom of your speed control plate. And this plastic, and then this here plastic arm goes underneath this brass lever. And it's just a matter of screwing it on. Generally, for initial setup, the back of the nut here to the housing here, I normally set it to about 10 mil on both sides and fine tune the speed after that. It's just a matter of reconnecting all the wires to the correct spot. Like I say, everything's marked. Quite hard to do it wrong. Now before we can set the speed, you reinstall the brushes so the thing will actually run. So these here have a track cut out on one side. There's actually a wee notch on the brush holder itself. That track actually goes along. If you put them in wrong, the notch will get caught and the brush won't actually go on the full way. So that notch has to be at the bottom right for this to go on. On this side, the wee notch is up the top left hand side. To go on like that. This is running too fast on speed 1, so we need to slow it down. This here needs to be able to rotate around 60 times every 60 seconds, so once a second. So way too fast. So we actually slow it down. I'm going to screw these 2 screws in. If you're working with this at home, switch off your power before adjusting anything, because this board is now live. Switch it off, you don't want to get a shock. I've done this enough times now, I don't bother switching it off. Test your speed. If it's too slow or too fast, switch off your power, adjust your screws, then go back, test it again when you've non-touching. So to slow it down, you want to tighten these screws in the way. To speed it up, you want to unscrew them. So to test the speed, you just want to count 10 seconds on how many times your finger actually touches this here shaft. This actual speed controller, it is actually quite clever the way this works. For the age of these machines and to have variable speed, all it's actually doing is switching on and off. So as she's running this copper plate, she's basically a spring. If you look up here at these 4 wee prongs, you can just about see sparks from the very tip of it. The reason that's sparking is because those 4 wee legs are touching these 2 contacts on either side, and it's sparking because it's actually not remaining on. It's actually vibrating back and forth. That's why you're getting a little bit of a spark, just arcing as it's breaking contact. So she's switching on, making contact. The motor starts spinning. As it gets up to speed, it's pulled away again and it switches off. The motor slows down. As it slows, switches back on again. And it keeps doing that repeatedly over and over and over again, and keeps the motor turning at an exact speed. And it's able to switch it on and off because of the little counterweight attached to the actual spindle of the motor itself. There's two little weights on either side, so as it goes faster and slower, then weights get pulled in and out, moving the back plate back and forth. So as it goes faster, the back plate moves out. It causes them wee legs at the back to move and lose contact. Once you lose contact, the motor slows down, the weights move in, the wee plates move back in again, make contact again. So as you go up and down through the speeds, she's actually shifting this whole plate back and forth. It changes the position of this plate, so it allows the counterweight to run faster before losing contact. So that's why it's dependent on these screws for the exact position to actually get the correct speed set. It's quite a clever wee setup, like, and you get a lot of last out of this here. No electronic components that fail, apart from a little tiny phase control board up on here. But apart from a wee bit of tweaking, very easy to set up. Now, once you have the low speed set and you're happy with it, lock these little nuts in position, keep it at that setting. Just give it a wee test there again to make sure that is definitely still at the same speed. So at stir speed, the lowest setting, you want maximum 60 revolutions a minute. So that's 10 every 10 seconds. You do not want any more than that. So that's about right. You can go just below. I think you can go roughly about 40 to 60 at stir speed. To set all the speeds, all you have to do is set the first speed, stir, and the maximum speed. Once you've them set, the rest of the speeds will just fall into place. Maximum speed then needs to be running at 180 revolutions per 60 seconds. So that's 30 every 10 seconds. So low speed's the important one. You don't want to go over 60 revolutions a minute. High speed, you can go more than 180 if you have to. You're not going to get it exactly between those two speeds anyway. This is an old machine. Parts are worn, this plate is worn. It's not going to allow you to do exactly 60 and 180. Get it close enough, that's good enough. Don't go tearing your hair out trying to get it set exactly like that. It's not an exact science. You're just trying to fine tune it to roughly that kind of speed. The important one is the stir speed. You don't want to go any more than 60 revolutions a minute. You can go down as far as 40 if you want, but you definitely don't want to go over 60. If you're mixing cakes or stuff like that, it doesn't really matter all that much. But if you're mixing dough, it's very viscous and very hard in the motor. If you don't whack it onto high speed, you put the motor and the gears under a tremendous load. You can't just go straight up to high speed. That's why you always put it on to stir first to build the speeds gradually. If stir's too fast, you're putting the motor under too much stress. You want low speed for the first setting. That's important. That way you can go up through the speeds when you're mixing something that's a lot heavier. The faster speed's not going to matter too much, because if you're whipping stuff like that there, you sort of do want the higher speeds, but you're never going to put it straight into high speed anyway. So make sure the low speed is set nice and low. Everything else should fall into place after that. Get the high speed roughly around 180. If it's more, it's more, but you want it at least at 180. So to adjust the high speed, once you've the low speed set, put it on high speed, number 6, and adjust this bottom screw. So you can see as you take that screw out, the motor starts to slow down. But the problem with that is, once you start screwing that out too much, if you go into first speed again, You won't have adjusted the first speed. Once you go into speed 2, there's no change. So if you end up adjusting the screw out too much to lower the top speed, you're going to lose your second speed. So there's only so much you can do with this bottom screw. Adjust it enough, and that's about it. You need the second speed, and this screw has to be far enough in for that. So generally, I don't adjust this too much, especially on an older machine like that. Generally, I'll just adjust it only enough. And that'll do. It's running a little bit faster, but the low speed set, it's an old machine, and that's as much as I really want to do with it. Lastly, put your back cover back on again. One screw to hold it on. Don't have this plate. Don't know if the customer has it or not. We'll just put that thumb screw back in. And we're nearly ready to go. Last thing, just make sure our head's still set right. Make sure we're now running correctly. Look at that. That's her. One Kitchenaid Classic. Up and running again. Little adjustment on the screw. Speed had to be adjusted a wee bit. And the head washed out, serviced, and new grease installed. She's now ready to go. She's not doing bad for a machine of this age. And this thing is most certainly not young. K45SS, made in the US. Kitchenaid Classic. Don't know how old she is, but she's not young. But she cleans up nicely. These are a brilliant machine if you're going to be invested in one. Simply because nice mechanical system, very little to go wrong. Easy to use, easy to maintain. You can strip them and clean them out and fix them up very easily. Parts are readily available for them. And what I like about them is the weight. They're a big, heavy machine. They sit on the counter, no problem. They're not going to go moving around. But that's her, lads. Hope you enjoyed watching. Hope you learned something. If you have one of them, hope you're a wee bit more confident in stripping them down, doing a bit of work to them. Very easy to work on. Anybody can do it at home. The only downside of them, the price. They're sure as hell ain't cheap. But when you get this many years out of them, they're definitely worth it in the long run. Apart from that, well worth it. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. Give us a wee like and a follow if you're liking them. And if you want to see when the new ones have been posted, hit subscribe there as well. Cheers. Chat to you later.